This is about community. Years ago, I was reading short stories with people and discussing them. I learned a lot from doing that. Many of the stories were very wonderful and powerful, hard to be that in the brief span of a short story. Some of them were humorous, others were deeply sad, tragic, and one of these was a story by William Faulkner, That Evening Sun. I had trouble reading Faulkner's novels, probably my immaturity, but I prized this story. And one time, one of the people in the group, a black lady, told me that the story offended her. I apologized for that and made a mental note of it. Not long after, another person in another group, also a black lady, objected to the story, and although I still thought very highly of it, especially in the levels of awareness of the children, I never used it again. The second lady had been so upset, obviously emotionally shaken, that out of respect for her feelings, I set the story aside. I could see why it bothered these people, but the story was supposed to bother a reader, shake them, in exactly that way. Perhaps it had done its work too well. I recalled that story when I came upon the report of a trial, a murder trial, an essay in the book of murder reports I was reading by Zora Neale Hurston. A black lady, a fairly well-to-do black lady, had shot a white doctor 4 times in the back while visiting him at his office. The doctor had had a child with this lady, and she was pregnant with another when she shot him. But in the criminal report, she was accused of shooting him because he was demanding payment for a bill of $6. Hurston was working as a reporter for the Pittsburgh Courier, a nationally distributed Negro newspaper. The trial took place in a southern county that was strong for the Ku Klux Klan. The jury in the trial was all male and all white, and they found the defendant guilty and they sentenced her to death. Certainly all the white people bought the story that the doctor was an upstanding leading citizen, having just been elected to the state senate, and the defendant was an evil, vicious, mean-spirited negress. Black people, knowing how things stood, went out of their way to show support for the murdered man and call for the just conviction of the defendant. Oh, how I hate to see that evening sun go down. It amounted to mass delusion by unanimous agreement, Hurston wrote. Anything which might tend to destroy the illusion must be pushed or wished away. The accusation was dogma, a chant, the doctor bill, the mad, mean nigger woman. There was no mention that the woman had been the mistress of the doctor. The lawyer for the defendant tried to introduce evidence, or at least a mention of that relationship in the trial. He tried it 38 times, and 38 times the prosecution objected that the question was irrelevant and immaterial to the case, and 38 times the judge sustained the objection, finally warning the attorney that he would be held in contempt if he persisted. I had begun the trial with some faith in Judge Adams, Hurston wrote. He will never send a human being to her death without permitting the jury to hear her side of the story. The judge did not allow it, and Hurston felt like she was wrapped inside a bad dream, a dedicated conspiracy to put this case where it belonged. Murder, guilty, death, done. Setting sun. At the end, she wrote, the community will had been done, and I was reminded of another story, the lottery. Except here the judgment was not random, it was consensual and unanimous and wrong. The similarities in the stories is people acting out of anger and fear. We cannot know what happened in the office or where the gun came from, whether she brought it with her with the intent to kill, but we do know that she killed him for a lot more than the payment on a $6 bill. Murder is murder, but mitigation and mercy can also exist. Not in this case. It is strange to see justice not as a decision backed by facts and reason, all the facts and every reason, but as something people need to restore their lives. It was a way of life that was on trial here, and, and that way of life was preserved, protected from the damage it had suffered. The community will had been done. Today I can still feel the power of community will, overcoming facts, reason, and justice.